Hello, welcome to Sun and Moon Yoga's YouTube channel. I'm Moyer here for meditation and Dharma talking tonight. And thank you for being here in person. Let's begin with about 10 minutes of quiet, settling in. Just first noticing the aspects of your body that allow you to find some comfort, some ease, some grounded presence. Let your seat root into the floor, the ground. Let your spine rise up out of that seat. So as the base of your body is heavy, the upper body is light and free. See if you can articulate the length of your spine with your awareness and maybe with a little bit of sensation in the torso. So you're starting at the tail and just sort of inching your mind up vertebrae by vertebrae through the lower spine, crossing the waist, moving into the upper back, the neck, finding the base of your skull. And then notice the features of your face, the cheeks, the mouth, the nose, eyes, brow, chin. And you let them feel sort of puffy and soft and airy, porous. Even as gravity tends to pull the features down, you can have awareness, give them a little bit of an extra lift, little acknowledgement. And then bring awareness to your breath and let it settle there, riding this vehicle of breath in and out like waves. Because we are human, we will notice that we've taken awareness away from the moment and away from the breath. But the moment that we have that awareness is the moment we can return. Perhaps there's sensation that you notice present as the breath makes its way through with your attention. Sit with those sensations. Even if there's a hint of unpleasantness or discomfort, notice if it's something that you can abide. If there's an itch, maybe hold off on scratching it and just watch and inquire as it has the potential to fade. So noticing continuously the coming in and bowing out, and touching back in and fading back out. It's no different than the rising and the setting of the sun. It's a continual, dynamic flow of mind that does what it does. And when we ask it to do something in particular, it is more than willing to cooperate. We have to be willing to pay attention enough to know when it's not cooperating. And this is mindfulness. This is being present. Just another few cycles of breath. And then bring your awareness to the immediate moment and all of its surroundings. And if you want to move around or shift position or change anything with your body, just waking back up to the immediacy. Thank you for being here. I want to start the talk tonight by sharing that I have this unrelenting sweet tooth. I crave sugar like nothing else. I could eat a whole cake for dinner if I let myself. But I would immediately regret it because I wouldn't feel good. You know, I would be sick to my stomach. I would be full, but I wouldn't be satisfied. It's not a fullness that's sustaining or substantial or wholesome. It's just a fullness that weighs me down. And I can just, it's a hard word to say. I can just, I know what I'm trying to say is juxtapose. I can juxtapose that kind of fullness with the kind of fullness when I eat a really delicious salad, which, if the dressing is right and the ingredients are fresh, is delicious, and I really enjoy it. It's satisfying, but in a different way than the cake is satisfying. It's uplifting, it's energizing. I feel great after a big salad that's tasting really good. It's a fullness that feels almost light. You know, it's like nothingness. I'm so full, I'm empty. And what I'm empty of is all the muck that weighs me down from things like sugar and cream, and right? As tasty as they are, once they get past the tongue and in there, they're not tasty anymore. So, but with this delicious salad, it's as if I am so suffused with the fullness of good, healthy calories, good, healthy energy, that I feel empty of this heaviness. I'm not talking about like weight issues and literal weight of the body. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about energetically. So I want to offer this as an analogy to explain the Buddhist concept of emptiness. The Buddha himself taught that there are three fundamental truths of human life. First truth is suffering. This is the first of the Four Noble Truths, but these are the three marks of existence. The first mark of existence is suffering. The second mark of existence is impermanence. And the third mark of existence is no self.
What?
No self, an absence of a separate self. So suffering in Sanskrit, dukkha, this is easy to grasp because we can immediately relate. It's everywhere. We've all felt it. It's an undeniable part of life. Suffering is like the stomach ache after too much cake. Or it's like the longing for cake when there isn't one available. Or it's like the revulsion of having had the cake and knowing that it wasn't the best choice of a meal. Second mark of existence, impermanence, anicca in Sanskrit. It's also not a big mental leap. The cake is only here for a minute or an hour or even a couple of days, but it doesn't last forever. And certainly we can relate to impermanence on a much larger scale. Our relationships, our bodies, our physical surroundings, everything about it is changing all the time. It's not a difficult mental leap to know that nothing lasts forever. You know, this earth itself is one big swirling hunk of impermanence. And the skies too, we see it every day with the sunrise and the sunset and the phases of the moon. We understand that all the stars and even the sun are so impermanent that at some point they're going to end in a fiery blast. And the stars already had their fiery blast and we're just seeing the remnants. So impermanence. And the final mark of existence is no self, anatta in Sanskrit. That's the hardest one to untangle. Well, let's start with the cake. Imagine that the cake had consciousness and it might fool itself into thinking it was special. It would say, look at my beautiful icing, look at my curly cues, and look at feel the moisture of my cakeness, and it would think it was singular unto itself. But from our side, we can see that this cake did not show up in a vacuum. We can see very clearly the infinite number of causes and conditions that had to occur before the cake could exist. And it never was just a cake. It's flour, it's eggs, it's frosting, which means that it was wheat and a chicken and sugarcane and mixing utensils and heat and containers and it was all of those things. It's not, what is a cake if not for all these other things? If the cake had consciousness, it would think it was just that, just like we think we are just us, but we are not. There's not a single person or a single aspect of life that exists unto itself. I may be sitting all alone in my house, simultaneously binging on the latest season of Ted Lasso and binging on cake, but none of that scenario is only about me. In the moment I decide that I alone am responsible for this cake, or that I alone can relate like nobody else to Ted Lasso, is the moment I reinforce that very first mark of existence, which is suffering. So in the simplest terms, there is no separate self because it would be an impossibility to maintain that self independent of other. The later elaborations on the Buddha's three marks of existence synthesized them to arrive at the conclusion of the concept of emptiness. In Sanskrit, the word is shunyata. And it's the lack of any stable ground underneath any single entity. Emptiness means that what I am right now is empty of a substance unto itself that is not dependent on all of the other substances and the and the insubstantial essences of human existence and life. The moment I take a breath, I'm not just me. I am the oxygen that's entering my lungs and then streaming through my blood, and on and on and on and on. In some translations, the word shunyata, which we usually translate to mean emptiness, is actually translated to mean fullness, which is a little bit of a mind twist. But to me, it makes more sense because there's no discrete and separate entity that is full of only itself. Like I just noted about oxygen coming in. It's full of all the causes and conditions constantly in flux that give rise to one moment at a time. So emptiness of a separate self, emptiness of self, means that what we're full of is each other, inseparably. And we have this funny saying about somebody who's full of themselves, right? Like full of ego, bombastic, overly confident, full of themselves. What we're really saying is that they're ignorant of their actual emptiness. They're oblivious to the truth of how inseparable and interconnected we all are. They're full of ideas that don't line up with the reality of things. So I want to take this pause here in this very complex idea that has been written about and taught by millions of people for thousands of years. And I am humbled to even try to broach the topic in any sensible way. So I want to offer a practice to play with it a little bit. And I'll say a little bit more afterwards. So start by bringing awareness to your heart center. And just imagine for a moment that your capacity to think, i.e. your mind, lives there in your heart. And then notice the very next idea that arises in your mind. Maybe you thought about your next meal, or a loved one, or a task at hand, just whatever thought comes up that seems like a separate entity, that seems like something that's not you, that's not there in your heart. Where does that idea begin? Does it begin out there somewhere? Or did it begin right in here? So that's the first clue to the emptiness of a singular self. We can't separate the thing that we thought of, that we believe exists out there, even if it's a piece of cake, with the desire or the curiosity or the revulsion that's living in here. Where does that stop and this start? Now think of a person, the very next person that comes up. And as you think of that person, their physical form is easy to identify, where it stops and where ours begins. But not our ideas about them, not our feelings for them. Are those things separate from the heart mind? Or are they mixed together, empty of division? These are leading questions. So with every newly arising thought, stay close to your heart mind and see if you can identify the sense that this phenomenon, this thought, perhaps starts here, but doesn't end anywhere. And perhaps didn't even start here, but certainly doesn't end here. It's just a constant mixing of circumstance, including consciousness. And so even though this inquiry is deliberate and sort of active, can you soften around it? Taking the thoughts of the things and the people out of the head, bringing them into the heart. And noticing, feeling what it's like to merge them here. Do you feel less full of yourself? More empty of separation? If at any time it starts to feel overwhelming for any reason or frustrating, just return awareness to the breath. Let it go. Every thought you have, every sensory experience you have is a meeting of a certain consciousness with a certain capacity to know or see or feel. And none of them exist unto themselves. Just soften now into noticing your breath and come back to the moment after one or two more inhales and exhales. And come back to your immediate surroundings. Take a few deep breaths, stretch and shift around however you'd like. There's a well-known saying about this topic in Buddhist circles, and it is that form is emptiness and emptiness is form. Maybe you've heard this before. Form is emptiness, like form is emptiness because ultimately it can't hold itself together as a permanent thing. If I drop this from a high place onto a hard floor, it will shatter. It can't hold itself together as this form forever, as beautiful as it is for now. It doesn't have a stable ground beneath it, even though we imagine that it does. This is not stable. The floor isn't even stable if an earthquake comes along, right? That's how form is ultimately empty. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form because without the substance, without the form of life, we wouldn't be able to know the nature of anything, including emptiness. Emptiness needs form to be perceived, to be apprehended. I'm going to butcher a little bit the idea. This was expressed by the philosopher Immanuel Kant. Kant said, without the world, consciousness is lame, like it can't function or do anything. And without consciousness, the world is blind. It can't see or know anything. Without the world, consciousness is lame. Without consciousness, the world is blind. Emptiness needs form, and form needs emptiness. This world and everything about it is an infinite number of forms, and consciousness sees the simultaneous emptiness of all these forms and the inseparability of them. And then wisdom sees the fullness of all things. In this inseparability, in this interbeingness, in the words of Thich Nhat Hanh, we are so empty of separateness that we are full. And it is much sweeter than any piece of cake I've ever eaten. That is where I will end, and we'll do just another 5 minutes of quiet sitting, and let it be sweet, let it be easy, let it be whatever it is, without chewing too hard on any of these big ideas. Just taking some breaths. invite the next breath, the very next breath in just a little deeper. And let it go for just a little bit longer. Take it in, give it back out. In acknowledging the emptiness of self, of us as a separate entity, we make more room for the fullness of each other. We make more room to celebrate this inseparability that we rely on every single day. And so if you'd like to join your palms together and take a slight bow of the head, join me in the hope that all beings may know happiness and the causes of happiness. That all beings may be relieved from suffering and the causes of suffering. And that all beings may know peace. Thank you so much. Take good care. Thank you.
Thank you.